Welcome back to the deep dive. We are tackling a subject today that I think, if we're being honest, haunts pretty much everyone listening. It certainly keeps me up at night. We're talking about self-control.
Yeah, the universal struggle, the thing we all think we don't have enough of.
I feel like struggle is putting it lightly. It feels more like a war sometimes. And if you're listening to this and thinking, oh, I'm fine, I have great willpower, I don't believe you.
Laughing slightly. You think they're lying.
I think you're lying to yourself.
Right.
Because what we found in the stack of research for today, specifically circling around a fascinating chapter called The Secret to Self-Control, is that almost everything we think we know about willpower is, well, it's wrong.
It's a complete inversion of the traditional narrative.
Yeah.
We usually think of self-control as this, this internal muscle, right? Like a bicep you have to flex over and over.
Right. Grit and determination.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the research we have here suggests it's not about the muscle at all. It's about where you're standing when you flex it. It's about the room you're in.
We're going to get into the architecture of it, which I think is a fascinating way to frame it. But to get there, we have to start somewhere that feels, completely unrelated to home design or habit tracking. We need to go back to 1971.
1971.
Let's set the stage here. It's the 16th year of the Vietnam War. Just think about the atmosphere in America at that time. You've got protests, you've got a presidency under siege, and the war itself is just grinding on and on.
It's a deeply divisive time. A lot of tension in the country.
For sure. And in the middle of all this chaos, two congressmen, Robert Steele from Connecticut and Morgan Murphy from Illinois, get on a plane.
They were on a fact-finding mission, essentially, trying to get a sense of what was really happening on the ground.
They head to Vietnam to check on the troops, and I think they expected to find the usual stuff, morale issues, maybe some supply chain problems, but what they found was something that literally sent Washington into a panic attack.
It was a bombshell, a complete bombshell.
They discovered that over 15% of U.S. soldiers stationed in Vietnam were heroin addicts.
Let's just pause and sit with that number for a second. 15%. We aren't talking about alcohol or marijuana.
No.
We are talking about heroin. In an active duty military force during a war.
It's terrifying. Just from a purely tactical standpoint, how do you run an army when 1 in every 6 or 7 of your soldiers is dependent on an opiate? But it got worse. The follow-up research, because obviously this triggered a massive investigation, showed the problem was even deeper.
Right. The deeper dive into the data revealed that 35% of service members in Vietnam had tried heroin at least once.
35%. A third of them.
A third. And as many as 20% were actually addicted. So Steele and Murphy, if anything, had underestimated the scale of the crisis.
So Washington freaks out. I can only imagine the meetings in the Oval Office. President Nixon is there. His advisors are sweating. The war is already incredibly unpopular.
A political nightmare.
And now you're looking at this tidal wave of addiction about to wash up on American shores.
That was the absolute #1 fear. You have hundreds of thousands of young men trained in combat carrying this severe chemical dependency about to be discharged back into civilian life.
The prediction was a catastrophe.
It was. The predictions were a massive crime wave, a public health disaster, the disintegration of families. They thought the country was on the brink of another, internal crisis.
Panic is the only word for it. So Nixon sets up the Special Action Office of Drug Abuse Prevention. It sounds like a bureaucratic mouthful, but the mandate was serious.
Oh, it was deadly serious. The goal was prevention, rehabilitation, and maybe most importantly, tracking. They needed to know exactly what happened to these guys once they got off the plane and went back to their hometowns.
And this is where the story pivots from a war story to a psychological breakthrough. Because the person they put in charge of the tracking, or at least the researcher who led the study that changed everything, was a woman named Lee Robbins.
A. Robbins, yeah.
I feel like she's an unsung hero in the history of psychology.
She really is. She was meticulous. You have to understand, at the time, the prevailing wisdom regarding heroin addiction was incredibly bleak. Really bleak.
The consensus was, once an addict, always an addict.
That's it. We still hear that today, right? The idea that addiction is this permanent mark on your soul or your biology.
Like a life sentence.
Exactly. The belief was that the chemical hooks were so strong that recovery was rare, and relapse was pretty much inevitable. It was viewed as an irreversible condition.
But Robbins didn't buy into the dogma.
She didn't care about the dogma, she cared about the data. She and her team tracked these soldiers as they reintegrated into society. And what she found didn't just surprise people, it offended them. It didn't make any sense based on what they thought they knew.
Lay the numbers on us. What did she find?
She found that when these soldiers returned to the United States, only 5% of them became re-addicted within a year.
5%. You said 20% were addicted over there?
20% were addicted in Vietnam. They come home, and a year later, only 5% are addicted again.
Wait, I want to make sure I'm understanding this. These guys were clinically addicted, using heavy opiates daily. They come home, and 9 out of 10 of them just stopped.
Essentially, yes.
Yeah.
Spontaneous recovery. They eliminated their addiction nearly overnight. And it gets even better. Just 12% relapsed within 3 years.
So even over a longer period, almost 90% of them just kicked it without a program.
For the most part, yeah. It flew in the face of everything the addiction treatment world believed.
That sounds impossible. I mean, if you look at a typical rehab clinic in the U.S. today, you don't see numbers anywhere near that.
No, and that's the crucial comparison that Robbins made. She looked at the typical rehabilitation scenario for civilian users in the United States, and the pattern is usually the same.
What's the cycle?
A user becomes addicted at home, surrounded by their friends, their job, their usual life. They go to a clinic to get clean. They detox in this sort of, sterile environment. Then they go back home.
And the relapse rates there?
Typically, 90% of heroin users become re-addicted once they return home from rehab.
Okay, so let's look at that contrast, because it's staggering. In the Vietnam study, 90% recover. In the standard U.S. model, 90% relapse. That is a complete inversion. It's not a margin of error. It's a perfect mirror image.
It creates this massive intellectual problem. If heroin is one of the most addictive substances on Earth, which is what we were told, how did thousands of men walk away from it without a 12-step program, without methadone, without years of therapy?
That is the mission of this deep dive. We have to figure out why. How did 90% of these soldiers just turn it off? Because if we can understand that, we can start to understand why I can't stop checking my phone, or why I can't stop eating junk food, or why any of us struggle with anything.
It forces us to confront the fact that addiction, and by extension, any bad habit, isn't just about the substance or the behavior. It's about where the behavior happens. It's about the invisible architecture of our environment.
So let's break that down. Let's analyze the Vietnam anomaly. Let's unpack the Vietnam environment. I want to get granular here. Why was it so easy to get hooked there and so easy to quit here?
Okay, so think about the sensory input of a soldier in Vietnam. First, and maybe most obviously, access. Heroin was cheap, potent, and available on street corners. The source says it was easier to get than cigarettes in some places.
So the friction to perform the bad habit was zero. It was right there.
Less than zero. It was being pushed on you. Then you have to look at the emotional environment. You are in a war zone. The stress levels are, off the chart.
Constant stress, life or death.
You are watching friends die. You are fearing for your own life every second of every day. You are desperate for an escape.
And heroin is the ultimate escape. It numbs everything.
It does. Then there's the social component. Who are your friends? Your platoon. Your fellow soldiers. If your platoon is using it to cope, you use it to cope. It becomes a bonding ritual, a shared experience.
And maybe the most important part, you are thousands of miles away from everything that makes you you.
Exactly. That's a crucial point. You aren't dad or son or employee. You're a soldier in the jungle. All the cues that trigger your normal identity, your normal habits, they're gone. So you build this new, powerful habit in this very specific, high-stress, high-access bubble.
Then the war ends for you. You get on a plane, you land in San Francisco or wherever, you go back to your parents' house in Ohio.
And what happens the moment you step off that plane? The cue of mortar fire, gone. The cue of easy access to cheap heroin, gone. The cue of your using buddies, they're scattered all across the country.
So the triggers effectively vanished all at once.
The entire context changed. And when the context changed, the habit didn't have any ground to stand on. It had no cues to activate it.
But, and here's the part that I struggle with, why doesn't that work for the guy going to rehab? He leaves his environment too, right? He goes to a clinic. That's a context change.
It is a temporary context change.
Yeah.
That's the critical distinction. Think about the rehab cycle again. You live in an apartment where you use drugs. You hang out with friends who use drugs. You have a stressful job that makes you want to use drugs. You leave for 30 days, 60 days to a clinic.
The clinic is pristine, no drugs, no stress, nice doctors, a totally different context.
It's a disciplined environment. So you get clean, your body detoxes, you feel good. But then You have to go back.
You go home.
You walk through the same front door, you smell the same smells in the hallway, you sit on the same couch where you used to get high, you see the same stress triggers on your work desk, your phone buzzes with a text from the same friend you used to use with.
You're walking right back into the spiderweb. Every single thread is still there.
You are returning to the exact cues that caused the addiction in the first place. You cannot separate the habit from the environment that created it. The Vietnam soldiers had this unique, almost accidental advantage. They were forced to create the habit in a temporary environment, and then they left that environment forever. Most of us are trying to break habits inside the very room that built them.
This is, well, it's uncomfortable, isn't it? Because it challenges a really, really deep-seated belief we have about character.
It completely challenges the moral model of behavior.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at how we treat addicts or even just people who are overweight or smokers, the cultural narrative is always about weakness. It's a failure of character.
If you wanted it bad enough, you'd just stop.
You just have no self-control. You're lazy. You're a bad person. We moralize these behaviors. We treat them as a defect of the soul.
It's the moral weakness argument. And it's comforting, in a strange way, for people who aren't struggling with that particular thing. It allows them to feel superior. I'm not addicted because I'm strong. You are addicted because you are weak.
But this research seems to say that's total nonsense.
It is. And it's not just the Vietnam study. The source material highlights some really fascinating recent research on people who we would describe as having high self-control. You know the people I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah. The people who wake up at 5 a.m., run 10 miles, eat a kale smoothie, and never, ever procrastinate. The people we love to hate.
Exactly. And we have this image of them fighting these epic internal battles all day long. We assume they are walking past the donut shop and using their iron will to say no 10 times a day.
Like they have a stronger willpower muscle than I do.
Right. But when scientists actually study these people, when they track their days and their decision-making, they found something hilarious and kind of liberating.
What?
They aren't using willpower at all.
What do you mean they're not using it?
They don't struggle with temptation because they are almost never exposed to temptation. The people with the best self-control are typically the ones who need to use it the least.
That feels like cheating. That's not fair.
Here, it's not cheating, it's strategy. They are simply better at structuring their lives. They don't have to resist the donuts at 10:00 p.m. because they never bought the donuts in the first place. They don't have the social media app on their phone, so they don't have to resist scrolling through it when they're bored.
So a disciplined person isn't a person with a stronger will. It's a person with a better designed environment.
Precisely. It is so much easier to practice self-restraint when you don't have to use it very often. Willpower is like a battery. It drains with every decision. These people are just smart about not draining the battery on stupid things.
But I have to play devil's advocate here for a second.
Please do.
Isn't this letting us off the hook a little too much? I mean, if I say, oh, it's not my fault, I ate the whole pizza, the pizza was there, aren't I just shifting the blame to the environment? At some point, I have to be responsible for what I put in my mouth, right? There has to be personal agency.
That's a really valid pushback. And we aren't saying you have no agency. You absolutely do. But we are saying that relying solely on agency, on that moment of choice, that moment of temptation, is a losing strategy in the long run. It's about being smart enough to acknowledge that your environment is stronger than your will.
So the responsible action isn't resisting the pizza when you're tired and stressed. The responsible action is not bringing the pizza into the house on Tuesday when you're feeling strong.
Exactly. Responsibility shifts from the moment of temptation to the moment of design. Your responsibility is to be the architect of your environment. You design it so that the temptation doesn't exist in the first place.
That makes sense. But why is the environment so powerful? Why can't I just ignore the pizza sitting on the counter? Why does my brain latch onto it so fiercely?
And that brings us to the neuroscience. Because this isn't just about, furniture arrangement and what you buy at the grocery store. It's about how your brain is physically wired.
The source talks about mental grooves, which is a great image, but let's get specific. What is actually happening in the gray matter?
Think about a core principle of neuroscience called long-term potentiation. The simplest way to say it is neurons that fire together, wire together.
I've heard that phrase.
When you perform a habit, let's say you feel stressed, you smoke a cigarette, you get a hit of nicotine, dopamine floods the brain. That dopamine acts like a chemical glue. It strengthens the synaptic connection between the cue, stress, and the action, smoking.
It's reinforcing the highway between those 2 points, making it smoother.
Exactly. And every time you repeat the loop, you're paving that highway again. Over time, that highway becomes a superhighway. It gets insulated with myelin. It becomes the path of least resistance for your brain's electrical signals. The source uses the metaphor of a riverbed.
Okay, tell me about that.
When it rains, water flows down the path of least resistance.
Ooh.
If a river has carved a deep channel into the earth over thousands of years, the water is going to go there every single time. It doesn't have to think about it.
And once that channel is dug, you can't just undig it. You can't just smooth it over.
No. You can stop the water for a while. That's like the soldiers leaving Vietnam. The river dries up. But the channel remains. The groove in the earth is still there, waiting.
So the habit is lying dormant.
Yes. And this is the, frankly, terrifying part about addiction. And really, any ingrained habit. You can break a habit, but you're unlikely to ever truly forget it. The neural architecture remains.
There's a story in the research about a woman named Patty Allwell that illustrates this so perfectly it's almost spooky.
The horse rider from Austin, Texas. This is a classic case study. It's incredible.
So Patty was a therapist. She was a smoker for years. And like many smokers, she had specific times when she would light up. For her, it was while riding horses with a friend.
Which is a very sensory-rich environment. I mean, think about it. The smell of the leather, the dust in the air, the rhythmic movement of the horse.
Right. So eventually she quit smoking, she gets clean, she's a non-smoker for years and years. But, and this is the key, during those years, she also stopped riding horses.
She changed her environment. She removed the cue.
Exactly. So fast forward decades, not weeks, not months, decades. She's a different person. She hops on a horse again for the first time in forever.
And what happens?
The moment she's in the saddle, she gets an overwhelming craving for a cigarette. It hit her like a truck out of nowhere.
The water found the old riverbed. After all that time.
That is wild. She hadn't consciously thought about smoking in years.
But the cue, the horse, the leather, the entire context, was still wired directly to the craving in her brain. It was just a dormant pathway waiting for a signal.
It makes you realize how efficient the brain is. It never throws anything away if it thinks it might need it again. It just archives it.
And it highlights a concept called cue-induced wanting. This is so crucial for understanding why just ignoring it doesn't work.
Cue-induced wanting. Break that down for us.
It means that the external trigger causes the craving before you even consciously process what is happening. The wanting comes before the awareness.
Before I even think about it. How is that possible?
Yes. There was a study mentioned in the source involving cocaine addicts and images of the drug. This, to me, is the scariest piece of data in the whole stack.
This one freaked me out, too. I couldn't stop thinking about it.
So scientists showed these addicts a picture of cocaine on a screen, but they flashed it for just 33 milliseconds.
33 milliseconds. To put that in perspective, how fast is that?
The human blink is about 300 to 400 milliseconds. So this is literally 10 times faster than you can blink your eye.
So they didn't even see it. It was subliminal.
Consciously. No. If you ask them, what did you see? They would say, nothing. Or, I saw a flash of light. They couldn't describe the image at all.
But their brains saw it.
Their brains saw it. And their brain scans showed the reward pathways, the nucleus accumbens, lighting up like a Christmas tree. Their subconscious recognized the drug and sparked the desire for it.
So the craving started before the person even knew what they were looking at.
Exactly. And that is why willpower is often completely helpless in the face of strong cues. You are fighting a biological response that has already happened before your conscious willpower even wakes up and gets its shoes on. By the time you're telling yourself, don't do it, your brain has already released the dopamine to make you want to do it.
That makes me feel incredibly vulnerable. It means we are being puppeteered by our environment constantly in ways we don't even perceive.
We are. And when the subconscious response triggers, it can start a chain reaction. The source calls these autocatalytic habits.
Autocatalytic, that's a $10 word. Sounds like something from a chemistry class.
Less. It is from chemistry. It basically means a reaction that produces the fuel for the next reaction. A self-feeding loop.
A downward spiral?
Yes. Let's look at a common one that I think a lot of people can relate to. You feel bad, maybe you're stressed from work or sad about something, so you eat junk food to self-soothe.
Comfort eating. We've all been there. It's a pint of ice cream after a bad day.
Right. Gives you a temporary dopamine hit. But then, because you ate a whole pint of ice cream, you feel sluggish and gross. You feel guilty.
Which makes you feel bad about yourself.
Which is the original cue that triggers the desire to eat more junk food to feel better.
The solution becomes the problem, which causes the need for the solution. It's a vicious cycle.
Exactly. Or look at the Sunday scaries. You worry about work on Monday? That anxiety makes you want to zone out, so you binge watch TV for 6 hours to avoid the feeling.
Which means you don't prep for the week, you stay up too late, and you don't get good sleep.
So Monday morning is chaotic and stressful, which validates your anxiety, which makes you even more anxious next Sunday. The cycle gets stronger.
Yeah, a runaway train.
And here is where traditional advice really, really fails us. Often, when people are in these loops, what do we try to scare them straight.
We try to shock them with negative information.
Right. We show smokers those graphic pictures of blackened lungs on the cigarette packs. We give obese people stern lectures on heart disease and diabetes.
And does it work?
Almost never. In fact, the source argues it often backfires.
How could it backfire? It seems logical.
Because if your primary coping mechanism for stress is smoking, and I show you a terrifying picture of a lung that causes you massive stress and anxiety, what are you going to do in that moment?
I'm going to reach for a cigarette.
You are going to smoke to relieve the anxiety caused by the anti-smoking ad. We are inadvertently triggering the very behavior we are trying to stop.
That is tragic. It's like we're pouring gasoline on the fire thinking it's water.
Because we aren't respecting the cue response loop. We are adding a negative cue, shame, fear. But the brain's well-worn response to any negative feeling is to seek the old reward.
So if we can't shame ourselves into changing and we can't willpower our way out of it because our brains are faster than our thoughts, what is the move? We've painted a pretty bleak picture here. We're puppets of our environment, doomed to repeat our habits in these downward spirals. Please tell me there's a solution in Section 3.
There is absolutely a solution. And it brings us right back to the beginning, back to the Vietnam soldiers. If the environment is the problem, the environment is also the solution.
This is the inversion of the first law of behavior change.
Right. So in the source material, the author outlines these 4 laws of behavior change. The first law for creating a good habit is make it obvious.
Put the apples on the counter instead of in the drawer. Put your running shoes by the front door.
Exactly. Make the cue for the good habit unmissable. So the inversion of that, to break a bad habit, is
make it invisible.
Make it invisible. Cut the habit off at the source. Attack the cue.
The expert consensus in the text is pretty blunt about this. Self-control is a short-term strategy, not a long-term one.
Think of it like energy economics. You have a limited amount of mental energy each day. It's often called decision fatigue. Every time you have to resist a temptation, you spend some of that energy.
So if I have a box of cookies on my desk, every single time I look at it and don't eat one, I'm paying a little mental tax.
A tiny tax. Yes. You might win the battle at 9 a.m. You might win it at 10 a.m. when you're fresh. But what about at 3 p.m. when you're tired, you just got a frustrating email, and your blood sugar's low?
By then, I'm broke. I have no energy left. The cookie wins.
You eat the cookie. So the goal isn't to be stronger and win more battles. The goal is to stop fighting the battle altogether.
The goal is to stop paying the tax.
Exactly. Remove the cookies from the desk. Better yet, don't buy them. Now you don't have to spend any energy ignoring them. You can use that precious mental energy for your actual work.
Let's get into the how-to here. Because make it invisible sounds simple, but in the modern world, it's actually really hard. Our world is designed to be extremely visible.
It is. We are fighting against armies of engineers and marketers whose entire job is to make it obvious. Your phone is designed to be obvious. The grocery store is designed to make junk food obvious.
So let's run through the specific examples from the source and see how we can actually apply them. First up, work productivity and the smartphone. This is the big one for almost everyone. The universal distraction. The source says, simply, if you can't seem to get any work done, leave your phone in another room for a few hours.
Now, I've tried this, and I have to say the first 10 minutes are excruciating. It's like a part of my body is missing.
Why? What does it feel like?
I keep reaching for it. It's like phantom limb syndrome. I'll reach for my pocket, and it's not there, and I get this little spike of panic. What if someone needs me? What if I missed an important text?
That's the withdrawal. That's the riverbed screaming for water. But what happens after 20 minutes? Or an hour?
That's where the magic is. The silence settles in. My brain stops looking for the next little dopamine hit, and I actually enter a flow state. I can think a complete thought from beginning to end.
And note that the advice isn't put it face down on your desk or turn on Do Not Disturb. It says in another room. Why is that distinction so important?
Because if it's on the desk, even face down, I know it's there. The cue is still visible in my mind's eye.
And your brain is spending micro amounts of energy monitoring it. Did it buzz? Was that a light I saw? I'll just quickly check the time. If it's in another room, you add friction. You have to physically get up, walk, and retrieve it. That little bit of friction gives your conscious mind a chance to intervene and say, wait, do I really need to do this?
It breaks the 33-millisecond subconscious loop.
Precisely.
Okay, next one. And this hits close to home for a lot of people. Self-esteem and social media, the source says. If you're continually feeling like you're not enough, stop following social media accounts that trigger jealousy and envy.
This is about curating your digital environment. We often think of environment as our physical rooms, but we live in our phones now. Your Instagram feed is a room you walk into 20 times a day.
That's a great way to put it. What's the furniture in that room?
Exactly. And if you walked into a physical room and everyone there just shouted at you, "You're poor, you're ugly, your vacation sucks, you're failing as a parent," you would leave that room immediately.
You'd run out the door and never go back.
But on social media, we voluntarily walk into that room. We follow the influencer with the perfect body, the friend with the perfect exotic vacation, the tech guy with the perfect startup, and then we wonder why we feel bad.
We are engaging in that auto-catalytic loop of insecurity. We feel bad, we look for distraction on the phone makes us feel worse.
So make it invisible. Unfollow. Mute. It's not petty, it's architectural. You are redesigning your digital living room to be a place that supports you, not one that attacks you.
It's using the delete button as a tool to remove the cue.
Precisely.
What about TV? This is an old school one, but it's still relevant. The source says, move the TV out of the bedroom.
This is huge for sleep hygiene, but it's also about habit formation. It goes back to context. If your bedroom has a TV in it, the context of bed becomes linked with entertainment.
I lie down, I grab the remote, it's automatic. My brain thinks bed means watch TV.
If you remove the TV, the room's purpose tightens. Its context becomes singular. Bed means sleep or intimacy. There's no longer a powerful cue for binge-watch Netflix until 2 a.m.
But I can hear the listeners arguing with us right now. But I like watching TV in bed. It's my way to unwind. It's comfy.
Of course it is. That's why it's an attractive habit. But if you are struggling with getting enough sleep, or you're watching 4 hours of TV a night and hating yourself for it, you have to change the geography. You have to make the bad habit more difficult and less visible.
What about spending? The source has a specific tip for tech gadgets. If you're spending too much money on electronics, quit reading reviews of the latest tech gear.
This directly targets cue-induced wanting.
I am so guilty of this. I don't need a new drone. I don't even fly the drone I already have. But if I watch a 10-minute YouTube video about the new amazing drone, suddenly I feel a hole in my life that I didn't know existed.
You didn't have the desire until the environment presented the cue. The review created the want. It manufactured the craving.
So the strategy isn't resist buying the drone after watching the video. The strategy is don't click on the video in the first place.
Stop exposing yourself to the sales pitch. Unsubscribe from the newsletters. Stop walking past the shoe store if you're trying to save money on shoes. Don't browse Amazon when you're bored.
It sounds so simple, almost insultingly simple. But I guess that's the point. We overcomplicate it with all this talk about willpower and grit.
We want it to be a heroic struggle because that feels meaningful, but effectiveness is usually boring. It's just moving the TV, unsubscribing, hiding the phone.
Let's touch on one more, and this is a good one. Gaming. If you're playing too many video games, unplug the console and put it in a closet after each use.
This is a classic example of adding friction. You're forcing a cold boot of the habit every single time.
Right. If the console is plugged in and sitting there on the TV stand, the controller is on the coffee table, the friction is zero. I sit down, I press one button, I'm playing in 30 seconds.
But if it's in the closet, I have to. Stand up, walk to the closet, open it, get the console out, untangle the cords, plug it into the wall, plug the HDMI into the TV, find the controller, wait for it to boot up.
And somewhere in that 2-minute process, my rational brain has time to wake up and ask, do I actually want to play for 3 hours right now, or am I just bored for a second?
Exactly. You are breaking the automaticity. You are turning a subconscious impulse into a conscious choice.
Yeah.
And often, that's all you need.
I love that. Turning a subconscious impulse into a conscious choice. That's the real goal of all of this.
It is.
Now, we've focused heavily on breaking bad habits, the inversion, but the source material puts this in a broader framework of the 4 laws of behavior change. I think it's worth zooming out for a minute to see the whole system because you can use this for good habits, too. It's not just about stopping things.
Definitely. It's a completely symmetrical system. What works for breaking habits works in reverse for creating them.
So run us through the 4 laws for creating a good habit. What's the positive framework?
Okay, so Law 1, make it obvious. This relates to the cue.
Make it attractive. This relates to the craving.
Make it easy. This relates to the response. And Law 4, make it satisfying. This relates to the reward.
And what we've been discussing today, breaking bad habits, is just flipping those on their head.
Right. The inversions. Inversion of Law 1, make it invisible. Inversion of Law 2, make it unattractive. Inversion of Law 3, make it difficult. And inversion of Law 4, make it unsatisfying.
We've drilled down on Law 1 and its inversion today, but the source actually provides some specific tools for the make it obvious side, how to actually build the good stuff. I want to highlight a couple of these because they are really actionable for anyone listening.
Sure, they're great.
First one, the habit scorecard. What is that?
This is the foundation. It's the audit. You can't change a habit you aren't aware of.
So how does it work in practice?
You literally take a piece of paper or notebook and write down everything you do in a typical day from the moment you wake up. Wake up, turn off alarm, check phone, go to bathroom, weigh myself, brush teeth, make coffee.
It sounds tedious.
It is a little tedious, but it is so revealing. Most of us run on autopilot. We don't realize that we check our phone for 10 minutes before we even get out of bed. The scorecard forces you to see the script that you're unconsciously acting out every day.
And once you see the script, you can decide which lines you want to edit.
Exactly. You go through the list and you mark each habit as positive, plus, negative, or neutral. It brings the subconscious into the light. It's the first step to making your cues obvious to yourself.
Then there's a technique called implementation intentions. That sounds like corporate speak, but the science behind it is apparently rock solid.
It's incredibly solid. Hundreds of studies have shown this works. It's a simple formula. I will behavior at time in location.
So instead of a vague goal like, I'm going to read more this year,
You get specific. You say, I will read for 20 minutes at 7 a.m. in the blue armchair in the living room.
why does being that specific matter so much?
Because you are preloading the decision. You aren't waking up and asking yourself, when should I read today? Or where should I sit? The plan is already made. The time and the location become the cue. 7 a.m. hits, you see the armchair, and it triggers the plan.
You're programming the trigger into your own life.
Yes, you're making the cue obvious in time and space.
And the third tool, this one is my personal favorite, habit stacking.
This is brilliant because it uses the existing momentum of your day. It uses the laziness of the brain to your advantage.
Explain it. What's the formula?
The formula is, after current habit, I will new habit.
So you piggyback the new thing you want to do onto something you already do automatically.
Right. You already have a strong paved superhighway in your brain for, say, pouring your morning cup of coffee. You do it every single day without thinking.
It's a deeply grooved habit.
So you attach the new habit to it. You don't create a new cue. You say, after I pour my morning coffee, I will meditate for 1 minute.
So the coffee pouring itself becomes the trigger for the meditation.
Exactly. You don't need to find a new time in your day or set a new alarm. You just hook the new wagon to the train that's already moving down the tracks.
I love that. After I take off my work shoes, I will immediately change into my gym clothes.
After I sit down for dinner, I will say one thing I'm grateful for.
After I brush my teeth, I will floss one tooth.
Just one. Start small, make it easy, but tied to the brushing.
And finally, environment design for good habits, which is just the opposite of what we talked about for bad ones. It's making the good cues pop.
Make the cues for your good habits obvious and visible. If you want to drink more water, put full water bottles in every room of the house. If you want to remember to read, put the book on your pillow so you literally have to move it to get into bed. If you want to practice guitar, don't keep it in a case in the closet.
No, buy a stand and put it right in the middle of the living room.
Exactly. Make it so you have to walk around it. Make your environment shout at you to do the good thing you want to do.
It really all comes back to this central, powerful idea. We are not separate from our surroundings. We're in a constant dialogue with them, whether we realize it or not.
We are, and that realization is actually incredibly empowering.
It feels empowering now. But I admit, at the start of this deep dive, it felt a little depressing. It felt like I have no free will.
It can feel like that at first.
Mm.
But if you accept that willpower is a myth, or at least a very limited short-term resource, then you stop beating yourself up for failing. You stop thinking, I'm a broken person, I have no discipline.
And you start thinking, I'm a good person in a poorly designed room.
Exactly. And that's a solvable problem. You stop trying to be a superhero, and you start trying to be an architect. You realize that you can change the room. You have control over the design, and when you change the room, you almost can't help but change your behavior.
I think about those soldiers in Vietnam. They didn't come home and take a self-control seminar. They didn't read a stack of self-help books. They just went home. Their environment was radically redesigned for them.
They changed their world, and their world changed them.
So the big takeaway for me, and I hope for you, the listener, is a complete redefinition of discipline. A disciplined person isn't someone who stares down a cookie on their desk all day and wins. A disciplined person is someone who is disciplined enough on Monday to not buy the cookies in the first place.
It's someone who structures their life to require less heroism. They preserve their willpower for the moments that really matter, not for fighting a pointless battle against a bag of chips.
That feels achievable. It feels like a design challenge, not a moral test.
And that makes it solvable. You can solve a design problem.
Before we wrap up, there was one quote in the source material that really stuck with me. It's a bit of a reality check to send us off with.
I think I know the one you mean. It's a heavy one. The author writes, I have never seen someone consistently stick to positive habits in a negative environment.
I have never seen someone consistently stick to positive habits in a negative environment. Let that sink in.
That's the bottom line. You can fight the current of your environment for a while. You can white-knuckle it for a week or a month. But eventually, the environment wins. The current is too strong.
So here's our invitation to you, listening right now. Look around the room you are in. If you're driving, think about your car. Think about your desk at work. Look at your kitchen counters. Look at your phone's home screen. And ask yourself this one simple question. Is this environment designed for the person I want to be? Or is it designed for the person I'm trying to stop being?
That's the essential question, because the answer will tell you what to do next.
If it's the latter, don't try harder. Just move the furniture. Thanks for diving in with us.
See you next time.